This cartoonist is falsely conflating two different parts of this debate. One is making the vaccines illegal, the other is not making them mandatory. I believe that anyone should be able to take any drug that he wants, as long as he agrees that there may be consequences. By the same token, if the drug is approved after all of the red tape, you should be able to sue the manufacturer. From what I can tell, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just wants to remove the mandates. After all, it is my body and my choice. Well, I severely doubt that a blonde or blue-eyed person broke in after leaving Colombia. I also doubt that someone of Asian heritage broke in after leaving Venezuela. Are there going to be bad calls? There undoubtedly will be. But everyone who has their identification on them need not be worried. This is the same ID that can be used for many things, such as bank loans, cashing checks, buying alcohol or tobacco, Medicare or Medicaid, buying a car, flying on an airplane, picking up a prescription, holding a protest or rally, donating blood, applying for welfare, and much more. College admissions, however, need to be based on merit. I do not want a doctor operating on me who was absent of merit. Any political cartoonist who uses this image in this way devalues Anne Frank to score a talking point. Furthermore, Anne Frank was not given food by the Nazis, and the Nazis hunted her down across national lines. If the nation of Israel or Netanyahu, neither of which is perfect, nor will I give blanket support for, were bombing without warning, and then started to go to one country after another, Mr. Danziger might have a point. Until then, we have a fine example of Godwin's law. Like I said, neither Israel nor Netanyahu is perfect, such as when they call for a regime change in Iran. Okay, a couple of things to note here. Not only are all of these characters from before Disney went super woke, but I would also like to point out that Stitch already uses guns. President Trump is not pulling anything, let alone forcing ABC or Disney to do anything. Jimmy Kimmel's show was pulled because he belittled and lied about someone who had just been assassinated. These same liberals believe that it was the right of these companies to fire us for not taking a certain drug, and deplatforming us for something that they disagreed with. But as soon as a private company does something that they do not like, obviously, the president is involved. If President Trump really is a fascist, dissenting views would not even air. Let me be absolutely clear on this for the slow-learning liberals. Stephen Colbert is finishing out his season. His show is not being renewed because it is losing money. When you alienate half of the country with your jokes, they do not watch. If people do not watch, people will not waste their advertising budget on the network. If there is no ad revenue, there is no reason to keep the show. As for Jimmy Kimmel, I hope he learned his lesson about politicizing an assassination and lying about who the actual killer was. Both of these men lost their jobs because a private company made a decision, not because of President Trump's imaginary fascism. Let me break Mr. Bowling's gibberish down a bit. The way that I see it, it starts with the central premise that without restricting rights, you are doing nothing. Here we see the baseline of what liberals think. It is not that Republicans do not care. There is little that can be done on the federal level. Even so, empowering law enforcement to arrest the killer would be a good start. The same people who want the police defunded want the government to enforce massive gun bans. It is not that Republicans suddenly cared just because the gay shooter killed Charlie Kirk. This is in large part due to the media that published every part of the manhunt. I blame the 24-hour news cycle. I do not care so much about the alignment of the killer, although they do tend to follow a pattern, being liberal, gender nonconforming, or coming from a fatherless home. First things first. Find the killer and lock him away for his trial. You can try to find the motive later. But again, this is a problem of the 24-hour news cycle. Mr. Bowling just loves his gibberish. ABC realized that if advertisers do not want the spot, the show will not make money. Meanwhile, these boards are also made up of the same people who would have reported you for leaving your home and celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk until that was no longer politically expedient. Besides, Jimmy Kimmel still has the potential to get back into ABC's good graces. All he has to do is admit that he spread fake news, that he should not glorify a murder, and possibly donate to Turning Point USA. That seems more than fair. Yes, the president has a lot of authority within the White House. he can freely fire just about anyone that he so chooses. That has never been up for debate. Wait, you mean to tell me this is about how liberals imagine that President Trump fired Kimmel? First of all, Kimmel was suspended, not fired. Secondly, it was a private company that made the decision. After all, these private companies have terms of service and can deplatform anyone, whether that be for what they consider misinformation or not taking a certain drug. By the way, Kimmel did fire someone for not taking said drug. This is what liberals do with their silly little word games. They give something an innocent name like wealth redistribution, but it should be called take from people who produce things and give to people who do nothing. Liberals created Antifa, short for anti-fascist, but the group uses fascist tactics. It would be like a group of anti-communists who want to redistribute wealth as they see fit. It just does not work. This hero fought actual fascists, as well as many National Socialists, and now lives alongside people who use the same fascist tactics to loot and pillage. There are a few things that I need to address with this one. Members of the president's cabinet serve at the behest of the president. If they want to go behind his back, this not only makes them a part of the deep state, but it also means that they should be fired. I also want to point out that former Vice President Kamala Harris reportedly fired more people than anyone else. Even if that was not the case, every member of the Biden administration defended him in everything that he did, even though all observable data showed that he was mentally and physically incompetent. Let me break Mr. Rawls' rubbish down a bit. Okay, here we have your classic liberal who misrepresents multiple items and then relates all of them to something unrelated. First, we have the weapons for the genocide, even though this is not a genocide. If it were, the Israelis are doing a terrible job at it. Second, we have the random Venezuelans, even though they were members of a cartel and were trying to bring drugs into America. Third, we have President Trump calling for an end to violence. This one is actually true, as he has called for non-violence repeatedly. Fourth, we have Mr. Rawl arguing that President Trump wants the death penalty if a Republican is killed. This is the crux of the cartoon and has no truth to it. Charlie Kirk was murdered, and some murderers deserve the death penalty. Mr. Rawl just loves his rubbish. And this one is a liberal just comparing unlike and unrelated things. Not only has Charlie Kirk called for non-violence, he has rejected calls for violence. And as someone who believes in merit over melanin, he would not be judging people based on their skin. Furthermore, these Antifa nutjobs were also condemned by President Trump. At least Mr. Jones would know that if he watched the unedited clip of President Trump. None of these people should get a holiday because they call for hatred and violence.